And so in this video, I wanted to give you some creative ideas using multiple images and using layers in Photoshop to create kind of a intentional camera movement, creative look to your images. So I have a couple different options that I want to share with you. So this first image is two shots. I was out at a flower farm, and this time of year in summer into fall, you can find just beautiful fields of flowers all over the place. And sometimes it's windy, and sometimes you don't want to just capture a single flower. So what I did for this is I actually took some intentional camera movement images. So the first one was a lot of movement. I had my camera setting at f/22. I was not using an ND filter. I had my back to the sun, and I just did some upward movement. So this is pretty abstract. Then I did the second shot, and let me raise the opacity and I'll show you. The second one is a little less movement, a little bit more detail in the flowers. And my thought once I was shooting these was that I could combine them to really express how the field looked. It was just full of flowers and blooming. And so I thought it would be fun to combine these. So I brought both of them into Photoshop as their own individual layers. So from Lightroom, you just click Edit and then Open as Layers in Photoshop. And then for this second image that I'm on right now, I reduced the opacity. Now you can also try different blend modes right here, but I found that the normal worked best for what I was wanting. So you can see immediately how it just adds some more weight, some more definition, and you really know that this is an abstract of this flower field. Now the next thing I wanted to do is with intentional camera movement, your camera's going to grab spots of light or something else in the image. And there was some white back here, some other flowers, and then there was some dark where the barn was. And I just didn't want that to be distracting. So the next thing I did is I added just a stamp down layer, and I went in and used the clone tool. So the clone tool is one of my favorite ways to just fix those little areas. So for example, if I wanted to correct or maybe clear up this little line, I could pick a spot in my image that is pretty similar. So I'm just going to come over here and click the Option key, and then I can bring it over. Let's come over here and click Option. I can just bring and kind of bring in and clean up that little area. Now I need to be on this layer or it will not work. So there we go. Yeah, so just kind of cleaning that up a little bit. Now, you don't have to do that, but you can also add additional flowers if you're really wanting to kind of create that meadow look. So if I found a spot where I felt I needed maybe a few more flowers, maybe I want to get rid of that white spot, I could just use the clone tool to kind of come around and just add some more pops of that yellow. I did the same thing up here. There were, if you look before, it was just all black. And so what I did is I just cloned in some of the grasses and some of the petals. For this, I kept my opacity at 100%, and again, just using the clone tool at different sizes to bring in some of those other textures. And then the last thing I did for this image, I did add some oil paint. Just wanted to give it that artistic kind of look that it did to the grasses. So that's one idea when you're out shooting, especially if it's a windy day or you've got a field of flowers and you want to create something more abstract. The second image is this one. And this is an option where I actually took a blurry shot. So I intentionally took my camera out of focus and I took this beautiful just shot of this. It was just dreamy light and these colors. Then the second shot, I'm going to go ahead and take it to 100% so you can see it, had a little bit of focus. Now I was using a lens baby lens with this, so I was able to get this blur all around it and then a little bit more detail here in the center. So my idea here was to combine these. So I'm basically using the blurred image almost like a texture. Now when you load these into Photoshop as layers, you can decide which image you want on the bottom. So usually I put my detailed image as my base, and then I'm adding that texture over top, and then I'm going to change the opacity of that layer. You can change the blend modes. You can do anything like that you want. And I think for this, I want the opacity to be pretty low. So I'm just trying to add a little bit more softness. You can see just a little bit around the edges. Now, if I wanted to add a mask, I could get it to black and use my brush and maybe change my brush opacity up here at the top, maybe 25%. And I could bring out some more details if I wanted. So if I wanted to pop a little bit more, I could even take it up maybe to 70%. Yeah. If I want to bring out a few more details here in the center of these flowers, and then I've got all that dreamy softness all around. Now with this, you could also add an oil paint, you could add a texture, tons of different ways to play with it. But again, just taking kind of a normal scene in a garden with beautiful light and just adding a little creative element to it. So that was using a blurred image. So those are two different ways to think about large garden scenes when you're out shooting. And I hope you'll consider those when you are out in the field and using the simple tools of bringing them into Photoshop and blending them to create your beautiful scenes of the garden. Thanks, everybody.